Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic War Veteran Beta, who is going to be coming to RTS as obviously the War Season character for the upcoming War Season that should be starting quite soon. Scopely will announce how that is going to actually work out, but basically this is going to work how previous War Veteran characters has worked. You progress through the season, you can gain those tokens and you can spend them as you wish, but one of the options will be a War Veteran Beta. Now, the visuals on Beta is probably up there as one of the best looking betas that have ever existed, and that's saying a lot because the original Mythic Beta was amazing on the visuals. On the right hand side you can see in good detail he's got double blades. It really looks cool. On the left hand side he is fighting what looks like Negan. I think that's Negan because of the baseball bat. But Negan is in a lot of trouble. Negan is in a lot of trouble for sure. If we look at the stats at level 1600, limit break 3, he has got 50,477 attack, 16,825 defense, and 26,173 HP. He is going to be a fast character, obviously, with those blades in his hands. He's going to be the support role. Gold Mythic, of course, and he is going to be joining the Whisperer's Allegiance, and that means he could potentially be good for these roadmaps, as well as, hopefully, War, as he is the War Veteran. Now, the first thing we're going to check out is going to be the Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Strength in Numbers. It has got a recharge rate of 55 AP, so pretty fast for an attack Adrenaline Rush. Make a critical attack against an enemy for 300% damage, but it gets +1 attack for each other living teammate. This fighter gets 10% AP for each living teammate. So pretty straightforward on the Adrenaline Rush here. Just an attack of 300%. It can crit, obviously. It's a guaranteed critical attack as well, which is very nice. And then all other attacks would also be guaranteed critical attacks. And you get one for every living teammate, up to a possible +4 in a war situation and on those Whisperer roadmap situations. On other roadmaps you could potentially get +5 just based on being able to use faction supporter, but that means you could potentially be doing 5 attacks of 300% guaranteed crits, and then obviously with all the crit multiplier that you can get from combat mods, weapons, so on and so forth, could be really big damage. And then with each of those fighters living teammates as well, he gets a big AP boost, and it might not seem like much, 10% for every teammate, which is 40%. But with 40% and a signature move, it should be him doing an Adrenaline Rush the next turn afterwards, because his Adrenaline Rush is so low. 10% of 55 is over 5, and then he should gain 4 of those, which should be over 20, and his signature move is 35. So he should be rushing very, very often, and that's great, obviously, for the Whisper roadmaps. It's good for War. It's good in general. It increases speed, but the Whisper roadmaps you're fighting against turns, and in War you just want to win as quickly as possible, so this should work very nicely indeed. So here we have the Adrenaline Rush of Beta, and it should be pretty straightforward. I should do the initial 300% hit, and then I should follow it up with 3 more 300% hits, because I've got 3 teammates alive. You can pretend one of my teammates has been downed in this situation, so it would only be 4 attacks, but up to 5. If I do take down the enemy, and I should take down Angel in the first 2 attacks, the other attacks will then move on to other enemies. It's basically just how it works. The Adrenaline Rush will come in. It uses both the knives for the Adrenaline Rush, which is nice to see. And then it does 3 extra attacks, as you just saw. I will say, I'm not using Beta's actual weapon for this test. I'll use it later on in the video. When you see it, it will obviously improve his Adrenaline Rush output. So jumping straight into the upgrades, you can see at grade 2 it gets an AP cost reduction down to 55, so originally it would probably be at 66. You're not going to see this for too long though. This is obviously only at grade 2, not too hard to come by. And then at grade 4, still 1 copy of Beta. Upgrades comes in where it's a big one, plus 1 attack for each other living teammate, and that's what the extra attacks you saw me happening. It isn't Whisperer teammates, it's any teammates, as that clip showed. And at limit break 1, 100% damage boost per individual attack, so it goes from 200% up to 300%, but that means it goes from 1,000% overall damage up to 1,500% overall potential damage. Then at Limit Break 3, another upgrade comes in where this fighter gets 10% AP for each living teammate. I didn't really show that in the clip before, but as I said about the numbers before, as long as there are 4 other teammates alive, you'll gain over 20. The next turn, if you can do your signature move, you should be able to rush that turn after that. So the turnaround between doing adrenaline rushes should be really quick. Like I said, on those road maps, really beneficial just because you're limited by turns. And in war, if you're not taking out characters on that first adrenaline rush, at least like that stubborn last character left alive could potentially take up to 5 hits from War Veteran Beta's adrenaline rush. So yeah, I like this adrenaline rush quite a lot. It's very basic, but it's very nice for the kit of Beta overall. Lots of hits. Obviously, we'll see the interaction with that weapon, like I said, later on in the video, and it'll be interesting to see what his passives do, because he isn't getting the multi-hit bonuses when it comes to him being a damage roll character, but he potentially, isn't going to proc weapons as much because he is support role. But hopefully there is something else in his passives that are going to boost his damage output. We'll have to see that later on in the video though. But the adrenaline rush, like I said, looks pretty good. Okay, so the next part of Beta's kit we're going to look at is going to be a signature move, and it is called Brutal Rally. It has got an initial cooldown at turn 1, cooldown at 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. This fighter gets 25% Halo for 2 turns, but it gets plus 25% if there is at least one other Whisper Allegiance teammate, going up to 50%. Deal 1000% damage to an enemy. Daze and confuse the target and one other enemy for 2 turns. So pretty straightforward on the Halo. It comes in first, so any damage dealt, if it does deal reflect or anything, or he's taken out afterwards, he will obviously revive back with the Halo. 25% guaranteed, up to 50%, which means the HP he will have when he gets revived. If there are other Whisperers teammates, it's not really needed that there's another Whisperers teammate, but it's just a nice little boost on the HP. Now the second part says deal 1000% damage to an enemy. This of course is deal damage, so it will bypass weapons, and that means he will not get stunned or absolute defended ever when it comes to actually doing this signature move on an enemy. However, it won't proc all of the potential things on his own weapon. Anything that says when attacking, those things won't work. Just so you're clear. 1535s will, because that's a buff, but anything that says when attacking, this is not attacking, it's dealing damage. It's slightly different. And obviously, this is also good against teams that have damage reduction intrinsically inbuilt, like Regina teams, where everyone gets damage reduction. Down to potentially 0% if with the right characters, as I've shown in clips before. Confusing and dazing that enemy I see as primarily being good against characters that are of Outlast. It does come in after the damage, so we'll have to see when it comes to those characters being able to still use their skills if they're in the Outlast state and their cleansers. So what I'll do is I will use that against Eris. But then it says that the target, obviously the person you attack, but also one other enemy. So even if you do take down an enemy that isn't an Outlast character, it's still going to daze and confuse someone else, which is a nice little bonus. So here we are off of turn 1, and I figured the obvious choice for this signature move would be Eris, just to see if it would actually still have her in the confused state after she's taken out. Because the confused comes in after the damage, it could be the case. So we'll do the signature move, and you can see Eris has been taken out, but she is not in the confused state. This is because she still cleanses the confused, unfortunately. But you can see other characters have been already confused and dazed, like you see in the top right hand corner in Angel. However, if there is only one enemy left alive, and in this case it would be Clementine, and there is a character already in Outlast state, for instance Eris, if I'm to use the signature move of Beta against Clementine here, would it then confuse Eris in an Outlast state? This is the only other test I can really think of. We do the signature move, and it does seem to actually confuse her, so she doesn't do her adrenaline rush, and that means she is just going to be out for the count. I don't think she'd even do her signature move in that case, because she was dazed as well. Obviously, we did have Clementine come back because she has Halo on her kit, so that's something else to think about. But it does confuse characters in an Outlast state, as long as they're the only other character that can be confused. If there are 2 teammates alive, it will always go to the character that is alive as a priority. So if we look at the upgrades on the signature move here, we can see at grade 3 we get plus 400% damage. So it goes from deal 600% damage to an enemy up to deal 1000% damage to an enemy. This is at 1 copy, of course. Then at grade 5, which is 2 copies, upgrade comes in where it says apply confuse to the same targets as daze for 2 turns. So I think as initially it probably only dazes the enemies, but then it also confuses them. This is 2 copies. Again, not too hard to come by. Generally speaking, not many characters are going to be super usable until they're LB2 at least. And as you can see at LB2 on the upgrades here, we get -1 to starting cooldown, which is obviously very nice indeed. So we'll be able to get this up and ready on turn 1. I will say the cooldown of 2 turns does mean that we won't be able to have the kind of like adrenaline rush signature move situation because of the AP gain on War Veteran Beta's Adrenaline Rush. But there will be a turn gap after the first Adrenaline Rush, but potentially you could have other characters giving AP in the team. You could have not signature move before the Adrenaline Rush. You know, there are definitely different things that can happen there. Even his basic attack should be good on turn 3 just because of his specialist skill. But that's how it works when it comes to the signature move. Again, a pretty nice one. It is a little bit of a shame that it didn't confuse Eris in Outlast, and that, you know, the order of operations, it kind of sees the attack and the confuse as the same entity rather than separated. But you did see there is potential still for it to be used in certain scenarios against characters like Eris. I think you basically have to prioritize her with characters that are built to counter her, which doesn't look like War Veteran Beta is, but he still looks pretty good. And I do like the fact that he does confuse and daze someone else when he takes someone out, because 1000% damage should be really good, especially considering his base weapon and all the kind of multipliers you can get in, 1535s around him. He should be doing significant damage with that Adrenaline Rush, with 50k base attack as well. His attack stat should be nice and high. Now, of course, War Veteran Beta has some mythic abilities. These are his passive skills. These can really make the difference on a character's kit. And his first one is, of course, Cunning, because he is a support character. When attacking or being attacked, 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. This only works on his Adrenaline Rush and his basic attacks. His signature move is a deal damage, so it never will proc enemy weapon effects, so that's not too much of a problem there. The next one is called Loyal Enforcer. The Honor Roll 2 specialist skill gives this fighter plus minus 170% more attack than normal with each activation. I'm not exactly sure what that terminology means. I will have to see. We'll have to test it out when it comes to the specialist skill, whether he's going to get a lot of attack stat there, or he's going to get less, or it's like maybe within a range. It could be between, you know, normal and 170%. It could be kind of random. That's actually kind of cool potentially. The next one's called Vengeance Rising. He has 100% stun resistance and 100% impair resistance inbuilt into his kit. I didn't see them as speech bubble buffs, but I might have just completely missed them. We will check in the next clip. But I think they're just inbuilt into his clip. And the reason that there's a difference there is they can't be cleansed off of him. They don't run out. He's just always got those resistances as if they're mods. So that's actually very nice indeed. They can be bypassed with control roll characters, you know, reduced down to 60%, but that's still very, very nice indeed. The next one's called Commanding Presence. When Honor Roll 2 triggers, one other teammate gets plus 75% attack for 2 turns. That is awesome, and I really like that, honestly. He's kind of got this, I mean, he is a support role character, but he's got a lot going on when it comes to support, a bit of control, potentially quite nice damage as well, especially after a couple of turns with the Honor Roll Specialist. So yeah, very nice indeed. I did wonder if he was going to get anything to boost his damage output. I was testing all of the previous things on turn 1, so obviously on turn 1 he has less potential attack on an Honor Roll Specialist. When you do his Adrenaline Rush on turn 2, or signature moves and Adrenaline Rushes further on into the fight, he's going to have big attack stats. That's going to be massive for the actual roadmaps for the Whisperers, but it could be good for war attacks too, just based on the fact that as the fight goes on, he's going to get stronger, which is very good for people who are kind of struggling against particular teams. He's going to get stronger as the fight goes on, which is obviously very nice. Let's check out how this works. It's primarily just going to be a test on the speech bubbles for the stun and impair resistance, which I don't think existed, and just how this Honor Roll 2 like triggers, the plus minus 170% is weird, and I'll probably get clarification from Scopely and put this in my top comment just so I'm 100% certain I understand how it works, and also you do. Okay, so as we start the fight, you can see I have got no speech bubble buffs above Beta's head. This means those stun and impair resistances are built into his kit. They'll never run out. I have also just visually seen he has got that scythe on his back, which is actually cool. When I do the defend action, he should gain, I think it's 60% attack on his honor roll specialist. I think it's 40 or 60%. I'll double check when we get onto the specialist skill, but I'm thinking it can potentially proc much higher. Let's do the defend action. So it looks like we're going to get 70%, and then I'll just defend on everybody here, and it'll go from 70 up to 140. So it looks like he's getting plus 10%. I'm not really sure. The wording was so weird on the actual passive itself, and you can see other characters are getting 75% attack. We've got Laura with 75%. And maybe she had it proc on her twice. But yeah, like other characters will get that attack bonus, which is actually really big. 75% attack is big. We'll defend again, and it goes up to 210. So it does look like it is just going to be a 70% boost rather than... it went up to 210%. Maybe that's the max, because it does have a max potential. He can just get there much quicker. And 210% is huge. When I do this signature move right now, it'll be nuclear levels, you know, it'll be absolutely crazy amounts of damage for a deal damage. If that was an attack that was able to crit, for instance, Adrenaline Rush with 210% attack boost, yeah, really, really nice. He gets that really quickly as well, because it only takes 3 turns to get up to 210% attack. And then in the Whisper roadmaps, he's obviously going to get that really, really quickly. Now, if we look at the upgrades here, we'll see the first half of Loyal Enforcer, and it doesn't make it any more obvious how it works. The Honor Roll 2 Specialist skill gives this fighter plus minus 90% more attack than normal with each activation. Again, I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe it's just more than what it usually... I don't know. Like I said, I'll try and get clarification. The next one says Cunning, the first half of Cunning, when attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. At grade 3, it has Loyal Enforcer 2, giving the Honor Roll Specialist skill gives this fighter a further 80% more attack than normal with each activation, which goes up to 170% total. Moving on to grades 4 and 5, you can see at grade 4, it's pretty easy. It's Vengeance Rising, Part 1, and it's 50% stun resistance and 50% impair resistance. Then at grade 5, we have Commanding Presence Part 1. When on a roll 2 triggers, one other teammate gets 30% attack for 2 turns. So even if you don't have this character to max grade, 30% attack isn't terrible. It's just a nice little boost indeed. Then we move on to the limit breaks. Limit break 1, Cunning 2 comes in, where it goes up to 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects when attacking or being attacked. Limit break 2 comes in with Vengeance Rising 2, making 100% stun resistance total and 100% impair resistance total. You saw this does not work as a speech bubble buff, so it will not run out, and that means that it cannot get stolen away, cannot get cleansed. It's just going to work all the time. If he gets taken out and gets revived, he's still got that buff effectively. And then lastly, at Limit Break 3, Commanding Presence 2 comes in. When Honor Roll 2 triggers, one other teammate gets a further 45% attack for 2 turns, making it a 75% attack buff. And that is actually massive. 75% attack, I think, is the highest attack you can get with the improved like strong attacks weapons, or like fast attack weapons, where they give 15% for each trait in that team. And 75% is obviously, 15 times 5. So it's basically he's giving that buff randomly to other characters. It's a shame it doesn't like prioritize, let's say, damage roll characters or something, but it is what it is. But it's going to be quite a nice buff if it lands on the right character for sure. Regardless, War Veteran Beta will get a buff himself, where he gives himself those triggers of his special skill, which we will check out in a bit. And maybe I'll just do the maths and see where it is on base plus 170%, or 170% of base. Is it 70% total? It just might be the way they had to write it for it to come out as 70%. Now, the last thing we're going to look at in his main kit is going to be a specialist skill before we move on to his weapon, and it is Honor Roll 2. This fighter's attack increases by 40% at the start of each turn after the first, up to 3 times. Bonus reset if killed, stunned, or impaired. Now, obviously, he can't be stunned or impaired because of his resistances, except from control role characters. It's just quite less likely to happen. He can be taken out, but it'll just start the procs again, and he's got Halo to bring himself back. Now, I did do some quick maths, and 170% of 40% is 68%. So basically, what I think's happening is the way they've written it in the passives, it's basically saying it gets boosted up to 170% of its original power, which would be 70, which it got boosted up to 70. You saw the 70 buffs that it was giving, and it's the way they've written it in the passives is it says 170% of the original power. It could just be a writing error, and I will pass it on to Scope League to make it just more simplistic and just saying 70% or plus 30% or something like that. But I'm not really sure. It just really worded bizarrely there. I was like, is this good or bad? Because there was a minus there as well. So we'll have to wait and see what Scope League say back. But you could see how it acted when I went into the stage. 70% per proc instead of 40%. Even 120% on honor roll is quite nice. But this means that after the first turn, he's almost going to get the same attack boost that he would get after normally what would be 2 turns. And then after the second turn, it's just all bonuses. And it just goes up to 210%, like I say. Much bigger attack boost and very nice indeed. Now, the last part of his kit overall that I'm going to take a look at is going to be his weapon, the attached weapon. And we will show you a clip of his Adrenaline Rush with this weapon just so you see how it works. War Veteran Beta's Savage Knives. It has 40% attack, a huge bonus to AP when attacking. In the third slot, it has improved double attack, crit up when attacking, a 60% chance to make a second attack with 175% attack and get 40 crit for 2 turns. And in the last slot, it has superior rush damage, increases rush damage by 50%. Now, I had to not show this basically in the previous clip because it could have gone crazy with the amount of attacks it does. I want to show this just to show you the difference. In the previous clip, I just used a normal like attack 1535 weapon. This is going to increase his attack by 50% rather than what that did was 15% in the 1535. And also, each of those individual hits on his Adrenaline Rush has a chance to double attack. So when it goes from, you know, for 4 attacks in this case, but up to 5 attacks, it could hit each one twice. So it could be 10 attacks. It's obviously only a 60% chance, but off 5 attacks, you've got a good chance of hitting 3 of those on a double attack, and that should be pretty significant damage output. Okay, so here we are starting the fight again, and I think last time what happened was I took out Angel in 2 hits, I took out Maggie in 1, and then I did a bit of damage to Molly but didn't take her out. They all do have bonus HP, which doesn't make it easier. I'm going to get my Adrenaline Rush. You can see the double attack came in straight away. And when I do this, it's going to hit a little bit harder because of the 50% boost to rush damage. But all attacks have a potential to actually hit double attacks. So the first one comes in and it is a double attack. Second one comes in as a double attack. Next one is a single but hits harder. And the next one is a single but hits harder. It's as simple as that. And that's just basically how it works. This time it was like 50% of the attacks hit double attacks. But on a 5 attack, if all of your teammates are alive, generally speaking, on average, you should hit 3 of them as a double attack, and that should be very nice indeed. And like I said, it scales with all the multipliers you want to put on the character, the mods with the crit multipliers on his kit, like the double with the set and the mod itself. If you have any bonuses from teammates, there are teammates that I think do crit multiply boost. I think even this Clementine did, or I think maybe it was just for Telltale characters, but there are definitely going to be characters out there that can boost the output of crit multiply, but also obviously attack buffs and faster web characters getting boosts. Definitely some good attack boosts for Beta, and not that he necessarily needs it because his special skill can give it to him too. So that's a pretty cool weapon, and it is nice to see like a nice attached weapon to a bit more of an accessible character. I don't normally like double attack, but because he's attacking so many times with his Adrenaline Rush, it is a good chance for it to be useful. When you only attack once, I think it's just too much of a lottery at that point. I just see it like if someone's going to attack 5 times though, it's very nice indeed. So yeah, very nice, and the 50% boost is nice. If he's got other 1535 characters around him, he will get his attack stat boosted as well, which is generally what you want. This will not work either of these 3rd or 4th slots with his signature move though, so you definitely want to boost that attack stat up to 55% on the main stat, and he relies all on the combat mods and his buffs and so on and so forth for that signature move. So that was a first look at Gold Mythic Beta, and he does look pretty nice indeed. Visually looks really cool. I didn't think I'd say it, but I think he's competing for the best visuals of a beta that we've had, and that says a lot. Like I've said before, we've had some pretty cool looking ones, particularly the one at the beginning of the Mythic era, but this one looks really cool. On the right hand side, on the left hand side, definitely one of my favorite characters. Obviously I'm a big Whisperers fan. I love Alpha, love Beta, the visuals are great, and it's cool to see more of an accessible character that is pretty strong, and Beta kind of feeling like a character that could be dangerous for sure. But let me know your thoughts on Beta as the War Veteran character for the upcoming War season. He'll be available in the War store, no doubt. Scopely will release information on how you can get your hands on him. That is the end of my video though, guys. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.